Hi everyone and welcome to Lipstick on a Rig. Today we're going to be making another photo ornament and this one is two-tone. And if you haven't already, then please check out my simpler monotone version of this, and this pattern is significantly easier than this one. So check the links in the description if you want to see how to make this first photo ornament. And for this project, we're going to be working with size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn, and I'm just using the Big Twist Value brand for my skein challenge, and my colors are Varsity Red and Cream. And we'll also be using a size F or 5 or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. And we're going to begin with a magic circle. So we're going to drape our tail over our working yarn, insert our crochet hook in that gap, and then yarn over and pull through. From here, we're going to place 13 double crochets inside our magic circle. And it's important to note that when you're placing these stitches, you should be placing them over your tail as well as inside the circle. And once you have your 13 double crochets in place, pull on your tail to tighten that gap. And I'm going to work over my tail. So we're going to begin by placing a slip stitch in our second double crochet stitch here. And this first one can get a little hidden, so it's going to look like your first regular double crochet stitch. So go ahead and insert your crochet hook in this stitch, drape your tail over, and just yarn over and pull through. Next, we're going to chain 2 and place 2 double crochets in each stitch in our row. And that does include this very first stitch where we placed our slip stitch. So when we get to the end of our row, we should have a total of 24 double crochet stitches. And at the end of your row, you're going to skip your slip stitch and your chain 2, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet stitch. And then we're going to chain 2. And the pattern for this row is going to be to place 1 double crochet in that first stitch where we placed our slip stitch, and then 2 double crochets in our next stitch. And that's going to be our pattern for the entire row. So we're just going to alternate between placing 1 and 2 double crochets going all the way around. And when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 36 double crochet stitches. And at the end of this row, we're going to skip our slip stitch and our chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of our first double crochet stitch. From here, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to place 1 single crochet in the back loop only of our first 5 stitches. And that does include this very first stitch where we placed our slip stitch. And once you have your 5 single crochets in place, then you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And now we're going to place 1 single crochet back in those 5 stitches. From here, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work again. And then we're going to place 1 single crochet in our first stitch. Then we're going to chain 3 and place 1 single crochet in our last stitch. So now you have a little handle for it. So now we just need to place a couple of slip stitches to get back to our original row here. And make sure that you're not placing your slip stitches in just these little loops on the end, but you really want to try to get inside the middle sort of area right here. And that way it doesn't add a lot of bulk to the edge. So I'm just going to place 2 slip stitches, but you can place as many as you think you need. And from here, we're going to dive right into our next stitch where we haven't already worked. So you can see here that this is the last front loop only from before. So now diving right into this next stitch, we're going to place a slip stitch. And once you're back at this very first regular stitch where we don't have a front loop, then we're going to chain 3. And we're going to skip our next 2 stitches, and in our third stitch we're going to place a double crochet. Then we're going to chain 1 and skip 2 stitches and place a double crochet in our third stitch. And we're just going to repeat that going all the way around our row. And when we get to the section where we have our front loops, so right here, I'll show you what we're going to do. And so when you get back to your front loops only, so right here, we're going to work in our front loops, but we need to skip our slip stitch at the end of our last row altogether. So we're going to skip our first 2 front loops, and in our third front loop, we're going to place a double crochet. Chain 1, and then we're going to work back in our original chain 3, and we're going to place a slip stitch in this second chain. So here's your first, second, and third, so you're going to slip stitch into your second chain there. And now we're just going to cut and tie off our yarn. And I like to sort of flip the webbing out like this and then hide my tail sort of in this crease right here. But I'm not going to do that yet because we're going to add our second color in first. So go ahead and grab your next color and we're going to attach it to your crochet hook using a slip knot. And we're going to flip this up again, so we're just basically going to turn it inside out. And what we're going to do is see these 2 skipped stitches. Go ahead and pick one that you want to work in. So for me, I'm going to pick this first skipped stitch, but it doesn't really matter. And then we're going to yarn over, pull up through the stitch, and then yarn over and drop our 2 loops for a single crochet. Then we're going to chain 2. And now we're going to place a double crochet in our next skipped stitch. So you should always be working sort of in the same pattern that you did before. So now we're going to chain 1 and we're just going to keep working this. And try to be consistent on what stitch you're working in. So if it's your first stitch, try to make it the first stitch every time. And if it's the second stitch, then just try to make it the second stitch. And when you get over to your front loops, you're going to have your slip stitch and your 2 front loops. So just go ahead and work in either the first or the second front loop. And when you get back to your single crochet, chain 2, you're going to want to slip stitch into your first chain stitch. And we're going to cut and tie off our yarn again. And now that it's already flipped around, go ahead and hide your tails along the inside here. So you want to hide them somewhere between this double crochet and your crease. And now that you're done hiding your tails, it should look something like this. So now we just need to cut a photo to place inside. And once you're done, it should look something like this. And please let me know in the comments below if you experienced any issues while you were making this, and I will do my best to help you out. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, Lipstick on a Rig. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.